Hi everyone, today I'm joined by Sam Chappell, our CTO. So Sam has been working really closely with all of our technical team in terms of overseeing all of our AI implementations, particularly with the Agentforce and Secret Escapes work that we've been doing. So I just thought, first of all, Sam, if you could just maybe share with us, obviously you've been with us since 2016, just give us a bit of a background in terms of your career so far at Perform IT and the things you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, as you know, I joined in 2016, where it was just you and I. Way back in the day, what was it? Two men in a shed.
Yeah,
I think the article that was written. I started as a junior consultant, working through sort of going on the road every week. We were at a different company doing a new implementation, learning a lot through that, just being in different places all the time. And then over the last 8.5, 9 years, that's progressed through to larger projects. I managed the support desk that we had for many years, and then grew, did development work, worked with development teams, and then grew into an architecture role for the last four and a bit years. I would say it's been where I've been leading the team in building everything, solution design, reviews, help throughout the journey, all the way from first talking to new clients and existing clients that I regularly keep up with, all the way through the project process, from identifying what the pains are, all the way through to a happy deployment, smiley faces at the end, and problems being solved.
great. And I suppose over all those years, you've probably worked, in terms a lot of different industries, business types, and probably seen an awful lot of different technical problems that you've solved.
Yeah, I think when we were looking at the stats the other day, we've worked in over 40 different industries and verticals, and I think that's probably the same for me individually as well. So, big in transport and logistics. I've spent a lot of time in travel and hospitality, but I've done manufacturing, retail, financial services, uh, just to name a few, energy,
Yeah.
huge amounts of different verticals. I've seen a lot of the same problems across all the same different verticals and industries as well.
Yeah.
There are very common business problems that we can solve through that. And then some more niche ones as well, specific for different industries as well, which has been really interesting to learn from.
Yeah. And you've also in that time, as well as building solutions for customers, kind of end users, you also worked on a few App Exchange products as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I've been the lead architect behind an ISV application, particularly for financial services, that's gone out around document management, which was a brilliant, unique challenge to work on. We're doing some very cool stuff with an existing client of ours as well in the ISV space. So it's nice to see the differences in how you maybe would design something between directly in an end client, and then if you need to scale that to be able to work with thousands of different people. But some amazing experiences through there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I can remember that I know the one you're talking about in financial services. I'm pretty sure that's one of the biggest orgs in EMEA, I think, that was
Yeah, that
deployed
went
to.
into,
Yeah,
yes, yeah. It was a very, if you think the ISV security review from Salesforce themselves is difficult, yeah, trying to get it into this org was another step above as well. So it's good, lots of good experience, and I think it sailed through pretty easily, really, because we were well prepared for it.
yeah. So obviously, we've been, had the privilege of being the first SI partner within EMEA to deploy a live Agentforce solution. I just wondered if you could give us a bit of background and tell us, what that was like, what you've learned about Agentforce, kind of how the process has gone. I know obviously we're also working on other deployments at the moment, and we've got more of them kicking off at the moment. So you must have learned an awful lot in the over the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to coin the term first partner architect to deploy Agentforce, just to give myself a little pat on the back there. But yeah, absolutely. It was a really interesting experience actually. We started with a conversation with an existing client with Secret Escapes. Case study that we've done is amazing for that as well. But it all came from a conversation where we've had a brilliant relationship with Salesforce and also with Secret Escapes, and that has meant that we can sort of start to have a look at what new functionality was coming out, and there was a desire to do some more with chatbots as they were at the moment. But we really wanted to focus on, is there anything new that's coming out? And we had the conversation with Kate and with Salesforce, and Secret Escapes were chosen to be on the pilot program for Agentforce. This was before we knew what it was called. It was, do you want to be on the generative AI pilot? And it was like, well, yes, of course we do. We've heard a little bit about and the rumors of it coming out and being the sort of the customer facing version of Copilot, as it was called at the time. And we'd played around with Copilot a bit internally, as we do, to make sure we're on top of all the new features. We thought, well, we can see some really clear use cases that would be amazing for this, so let's jump on it. Let's do it. And we spent probably the best part of around about 3 months to get everything up to speed. So there was a little bit of involvement in making sure that we had everything in check that we needed. So there was already a huge knowledge base in, so that was fine. We could work with that. We did a couple of upgrades to messaging for in-app and web to make sure that was up and in the right area to be able to use that. And then we started doing some work with their internal team to make some connections with Data Cloud and various other sort of integrations to make sure we could pull in information from other systems, because we knew that was going to be the key to making the agent, that step more powerful, to be able to, pull in from booking information and flight information and things like that. That's going to be really helpful to the customer. And so we sort of laid the groundwork there. And then once we got access to the pilot functionality, that's when we really started getting into all the prompt engineering that we were doing, focusing on how this product was going to fit together, and liaising with the professional services team and the product team at Salesforce, which was really helpful in having people that could make changes for us and tell us if we'd hit a bug or if there was something that we were doing that we needed to change. So we gained a huge amount of knowledge through that process. And there were a few limitations with the pilot, but that's as you expect, right? That we knew what they were when we were going in. So we built the foundations for everything. So as soon as the product went generally available, we technically had the product live on the site, answering questions with knowledge before the Agentforce was generally available. Yeah. So that was a goal of ours, that we wanted to get that out. And then within the week of it changing, we'd flipped onto the generally available, and that opened some additional use cases for us, because we could store variables in there within the context of the conversation with the agent, which unlocked umpteen amount of use cases that we could look at, plan and roadmap. But also there were 4 sort of key use cases we were looking at to start with, focusing on bringing those in, and it meant all the integrations that we wanted to work with could work and build through. So it's been quite an interesting journey to get to where we have been, and that's only led to some of the really interesting work that we're doing now with SDR agent and internal agent forces as well. I think we're on track to get another SDR agent in within the next month, which is brilliant. That's again got its own intricacies, which has been really fun to work with, but is looking really, really powerful. We've got some amazing content being generated by all the prompt templates there. So it's really, really exciting at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's definitely exciting to actually be able to kind of influence what's being developed in the product, and as you say, working with the Salesforce product team and professional services.
Yeah.
Did you find, kind of, were they pretty quick to respond to things? The actually making changes and bug fixes and so on.
Yeah, they were amazing actually. They were really, really helpful, and I think that was part of the success of the project. Obviously, because it was a pilot specifically as well, we knew there were going to be things, and that was something that we had a conversation with Salesforce around, making sure that the feedback and the communication channels are really strong, so that we could make sure that if we were facing any bugs, there were a couple of other pilots going on around the world as well, that they could collate all that information and go back and make sure that the product was ready for GA.
Yeah.
We didn't hit that many. It was more around, certain features weren't quite ready to use within the pilot at the time. So we focused on making sure that we worked within the boundaries and sort of seeing where we could get to.
Yeah. So and I guess the product team, if there were, as you mentioned earlier before, maybe there were things that we weren't doing right, the right way to get the right results. So I guess they were kind of also almost teaching you, like here's the product and here's how to get the best out of it and use it.
Very much the theory, I would say. It's with it being such new technology, it was a lot of working together really and going, right, let's work out what is the best way, what are the best ways to implement this, because there weren't that many people on the pilot at the time, and so we were all learning together and working it out together. We might have seen a problem and fixed it and gone, hey, we found this. Actually, we need to sequence things in a certain way, and if we write prompts in a certain way, that helps, and instructions and topics in a certain way, and we'll have a look at that. And vice versa, they might, there have been times where they've said, oh, actually, we've had some really good results in another pilot doing X, Y, and Z. Try that might fix your issue. And so it's been a lot of back and forth with that, and it's sort of let us create the foundation of what best practice is for Agentforce implementations ahead of the product going GA, which has meant we've been able to really crack on quite quickly and produce really high quality implementations for people since the product's been generally available as well, which has been really, really cool.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned to me, obviously you've built some really good relationships in terms of the people within the product team that and also within professional services, and I think you've kind of been sharing your own experiences and knowledge, so there's equally you and your team have been feeding back and giving some knowledge and sharing experiences with professional services and the product teams. So as you say, it's not been a kind of just Salesforce pushing knowledge our way. We've actually been, kind of feeding back and, kind of, it sounds like, everybody's learnt from the experience and is kind of building their capabilities based on that. Yeah,
absolutely. We don't want to ring fence any knowledge. It's a new product. Everyone's trying to get up to speed with it. We want to try and help as much as we can, because we, as much as we've been trying to push it, we don't know what the limits are yet. I think that's what's so exciting.
Fantastic. So obviously we've talked about the newness of the product and the challenges that brings. Are there any other sort of major challenges that you faced or big takeaways that you got?
Yeah, I think the biggest, the biggest takeaways that we've seen to start with, number one, I'm sure you've heard it everywhere, data. The foundational data has to be there. If you trained an employee badly and they're not producing the results you wanted, that's because you've not given them the right content to understand, to learn, to then produce their job right. It's exactly the same with an agent. If you give it bad data, it's not going to do what you want it to, because it's doing what you've told it and inferring the outcomes based on, you know, the data that you've given it, which, you know, is maybe incomplete or biased. And so there's a lot that has to go into that. Now, we spent a lot of time making sure that the foundational data is ready and working with our clients to make sure that they know what data quality is for AI, because it is slightly different in different areas, and there is information that maybe you wouldn't want to necessarily always keep traditionally, you know, if you're getting close to your storage, but is actually really useful to see both the positive and negative outcomes of things when you're trying to train a model. So that's been one of them. I think testing would be number two, right? That's the next thing. We, after the completed project with Secret Escapes, I had a member of Salesforce contact me, wanting to ask a couple of questions around, you know, how it went and what was going on. And he specifically asked me around testing, which I thought was quite interesting at the time, because that was the one, you know, one of the key takeaways for me. And what we worked out was, I think the question he posed to me was, how, for every week of work, how much testing did you do? And I said, to be honest, I think for every week of or if we spent a day creating changes and putting something new in, we'd test for a week to make sure. So about a 1-to-5 ratio. Yeah. And he said, that's funny, because every single other partner or internal Salesforce team that has worked on an Agentforce implementation has told me the same thing. Good news is testing center's out now. So we're just starting to understand what the capabilities of that are. But that is hopefully going to help reduce down that testing time a lot, right, by being able to use a model to actually test a model, which is brilliant. You know, AI testing AI with all the prompts and things that we need to make sure it sequences properly. But it's certainly something that still takes some time to prep and build in to make sure that that's going to work properly, but it will save you a lot of time in the future. But testing is something to not underestimate at all. Due to the nature of generative AI, you are going to get slightly different bits of information, but the reasoning engine also has to understand what you're prompting it to do, and there are tricks and intricacies as to make sure that that can work properly. But just like any other software as well, you know, if you change one small prompt, one instruction, it can affect other areas as well. So you do have to fully regression test everything, and that takes time. But it's not something you want to skimp on quality for. And we've spent quite a lot of time trying to work out how we can do that really well. And I think the key for anyone is, you know, not only having your technical testers on and testing the functionality, but having the people who are going to be using it, who are going to be interacting with it every day. You know, the business owners who, not necessarily the key stakeholders themselves, but, you know, if you're building an agent for customer service, your customer service reps should be testing it, because they're the people who know what the correct answers are. And if you know, the responses back are what they would do, what they would expect to hear, whether the tone's correct, all of that stuff. Same for sales, right? There's no way I would want anyone testing the SDR agent or putting that anywhere near production without all the sales team looking at it and going, yeah, you know, that's the kind of sound and tonality I want within my email that's going out or not. Because that is the key to these, is making sure that they mimic your brand and mimic the outputs that you want from your team.
Interesting.
So those would be the two, data and testing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and obviously, you know, really understanding and gaining the knowledge that you have of how the reasoning engine's working along with the LLMs,
Yeah.
so that, as you say, you can build the right prompts, you know, get the grounding right, you know, to get the results that you need.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's been really cool. You know, new challenges compared to what you might expect elsewhere. You know, it's nice to have a new challenge to look at and define what best in class looks like, which has been really fun.
yeah. And how have your team found it? You know, I'm guessing they've all been pretty enthused and, you know, like excited to work with this new technology.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've been having to quell and sort of make sure that there's a fair run around of who's doing it, because everyone's going, oh, there's a new Agentforce project. I want to do it. I want to jump on it. And it's like, well, no, you've done two already.
Yeah.
You know, we can share the learning, but make sure that everyone gets a chance to work on it. I know everyone's been hot all over the certification, so they can have a look at it. Yeah. And we've been running some exercises internally, you know, and trying to do some internal competitions to see, you know, who can come up with the best use cases and do cool things with it technically to try and, you know, make sure that everyone gets a chance to look at that. But I think what's really cool is people are seeing how beneficial all of the quality of the development Apex classes they've written, or methods or flows that can then link in, and how they can use that to help automate and see different areas, as well as, you know, work on an internal co-pilot for us as well. So yeah, it's hard to try and make sure everyone gets a fair share of it at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've certainly noticed that the data cloud and the AI specialist certifications have been coming in thick and fast from your team. I think pretty much everybody's got them now, so that's an amazing. I don't think I've seen that much enthusiasm. You know, we all they all love Salesforce technology, but I don't think I've ever seen anything kind of picked up quite so quick.
Yeah.
And as you say, you know, it's great to see that, you know, that knowledge is being shared within the team, to kind of build our capability. Just one thing I wanted to pick up on, obviously, you know, as you say, the testing center is a really exciting new development. Is there anything that you kind of foresee in terms of, you know, obviously it's early days, but, you know, other tools, other, you know, kind of developments in terms of, you know, improving the speed and quality at which we can, you know, deploy these AI projects? You know, is there anything you think that, you know, obviously we don't know for sure, but is there anything that you can envisage that might start happening from Salesforce or indeed other vendors, you know, kind of to, you know, I guess, enable a quicker, faster, higher quality build and deployment of AI tools in general?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot that come out on the App Exchange that are going to be built out and sort of productized, so to speak. I'm sure there will be some common use cases that people are going to be working towards building. I know we're certainly looking at trying to work out the best way to package them. You know, where there are common actions that people might be doing or using, common pieces of logic, as well as we are building a big database full of all the prompts that we've used, ones that have worked and ones that haven't as well, so that we've got those, and trying to start to analyse the styling and the tonality of what we're writing and how it's going in, so that, you know, we've got the cheat sheet essentially to building an agent quickly and building it in the right way to get what you want out of it. I would say the other thing that is going to be hugely beneficial is people really taking a proper look at the architecture of how they've built their automation, because Agentforce works best with smaller, more precise actions. You know, you want to be calling take converting a lead, for example. You want to have an action to call and search for the lead and bring variables back. You then want to have a separate action that's converting the lead and pulling the opportunity ID back. You then might want a separate action to add products. Now, traditionally, if you were doing that, maybe let's say on a record update, you might just build a long flow that does all of that in one go. But that's not as helpful to an agent, because you might want to trigger the addition of products when the lead isn't converted and you've just got an opportunity that someone's updated or something like that. So you want to be able to make things dynamic that can then, as you would as a human, make a reasonable decision to go, well, I've already got an opportunity, so I'll just add some products on. I don't need to go through a convert lead status because there isn't a lead that exists for me to do that with. Which is, within reason, best practice to architect out your automations in a way that you can modularize them and reuse them across multiple different areas. So I think they'll probably see a shift in the way, if people aren't building them that way at the moment, I think things are going to shift. Now, I know it's been done, with class structure in Apex at the moment for many years, but I think you'll start to see a lot of those software development principles that are baked into how a consulting partner might work start to flow into end user builders who maybe there are a lot of accidental admins that people have jumped into Salesforce and learnt about software development and maybe not gone through that traditional path and understand the benefits of doing that, or maybe they don't have an architect with them at the time, and so the logical thing, if you've not done it before, is to build a flow that does everything. I think we'll start to see that architecture and the best practice trained out a lot more within administrators who are building flows all the time with point and click and taking on those principles, which will only make agents more powerful, and also make their orgs cleaner and more structured for growth in the future.
And I guess more efficient in terms of the architecture, but also the speed of development. So as you say, those lots of those good skills that software engineers learn, perhaps if they're doing a software engineering degree, and object orientation and structuring of class and code, actually that's this is going to kind of push admins and advanced admins to follow those same rules. So I guess that's a tip for any users out there who are listening, any admins, kind of really modularize and break down your flows that you're building.
What's reusable, essentially. If you can think of another use case, you might use that specific action, make it its own flow and call it. You can use subflows, you can use triggers and order management within flow triggers now, so there's no reason to not start building flows like code. It is point and click, but there are best practices, and I definitely recommend people certainly do some reading about it for sure, or come and have a chat with us.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, I mean, it's something that I've definitely, I know that our admins and advanced admins and consultants are, that there's a lot of learnings that they've taken over the last, sort of 3 or 4 years from our developers. So it's kind of, really just brought on the quality of what we're producing and making life easier for our clients in the end, isn't it? Because it's a lower kind of cost of ownership in terms of maintenance, but it also allows our clients to, quickly develop other features and functions on the platform.
Absolutely.
So obviously the Secret Escapes project's been a huge success, really positive. Everybody's got great things to say about it. I know, we're pleased, Secret Escapes are pleased, Salesforce are pleased. There's, as you touched on before, huge amount of learnings, on all parties, in terms of how to, go about deploying these agents and building them. I just wondered if you could maybe give us some insights in terms of obviously it has been really positive that the teams you mentioned earlier it's important for the end users to become involved, particularly around testing. And I know that they certainly, from the knowledge I have and interviews and so on, I can see that they really understood that this technology is there to augment their jobs, make things easier. It's not there to replace them. And I just wondered what you'd seen between yourself, Kate and the team at Secret Escapes and Salesforce. Was that on purpose? What did you proactively seek to do that, or did it just come about? I'm just interested to know, what was the secret to that real success?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of reasons for it. The first one was there was a very clear defined use case for what we wanted it to do. There were 4 use cases that we worked through. So answering questions dynamically, giving information around bookings, flight information, and then cancelling or updating orders. Bookings, cancelling or updating bookings. And those were the top 4 case types that they got through through their customer service desk. So we worked on those. We worked out whether they were available to do or not, and what was going to happen. That got the leadership on board at Secret Escapes. I can't claim credit for that. That was work that the Salesforce team at Secret Escapes had identified alongside the customer service director, and we all then sat and spoke around. Is this possible? What can we do here? And agreed on which use cases would be right, because there were a few extras. And then that was sort of where we went from. So there was buy-in from stakeholders, from the key stakeholders at that point, to make sure that it was driving in the right direction. Obviously, when we were then working with the customer services director there as well, and the team, they were really bought in because they wanted to find a way to help decrease their average handle time and also increase their deflection. So the first, I think it was sort of attacked in a two-way area. So there was the addition of service replies and some of the internal, Einstein email summaries and things like that for the end users who are using Salesforce still to answer queries that come through to those customer service agents. So we wanted to start with making sure that their lives were easier and they had less repetitive jobs. Yeah. They were surfaced information quicker. They had everything that they needed at their fingertips to try and help serve those customers more easily.
So was that, I suppose, that's it sounds like that was almost like an introduction to AI for those people, but a really positive one, saving them lots of time and effort to almost tee them up for the agent coming. So using those Einstein features first, all the ones that have been around for a while, to kind of set the tone,
start to build up. And then obviously as we started to add the agent in, there was already live chat within, and there was already a menu-based bot that was being used on the website. So I think everyone was bought in that they wanted to make that a better experience. They wanted to make sure customers, if they got through to them on a live chat, that they weren't frustrated maybe by some of the experiences that they had, and that they had more information. So even if it gets escalated, there's so much more information that you can gather through an agent, just based on the dynamic nature of it, than you can through a traditional chatbot. And so it's more helpful for them when they're serving the customers as well, to get back to them quicker. And those extra deflections just mean that they get more time to spend on those more complex, more urgent use cases that they might need to, as well as not having a huge plethora of tickets that are open, because between I'm not 100% sure what the times are off the top of my head, but they don't work 24/7.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a time where a number of tickets then pile up, and you've got a bunch of new ones and a bunch of really important critical ones that you're working on as well. But it means that the workload is scalable, and as Secret Escapes grow, and as they're a growing business, there's not a huge load that's going to be put onto customer service, with the agents helping them as well. So I think it was really, the benefits were shared from the beginning, from the inception of the project, and that was shared through the IT teams, that was shared through the customer service teams, obviously shared to the key stakeholders, and that just means that everyone's on board for the journey, and they can see the benefits, they can see how it's helping them produce better quality work, which is what they want. That's what everyone wants to do, right? You want to be the best that you can within your role. And also, I think we got them involved throughout the whole journey. When we were testing, we made sure that the customer service agents were testing the agent, that they got a chance to play with it and ask it questions and see what they were happy with, and feedback about whether they liked the responses or not. And it made it a really involved implementation, but it also helped us do the testing quicker.
Yeah. So I guess like you said, it's by them feeding back and being involved in the testing regularly and up front. I guess it's a bit like how you were describing earlier. It's really been exciting for our team to liaise with Salesforce product team, Salesforce professional services, share our experiences and so on. I guess and that creates buy-in and everybody wants to get involved. I guess it's the same thing. Did you have any? Were there any sort of competitions or any kind of fun like that in terms of, hey, if you find a bug or that kind of stuff?
We had a bug finding fee, so we that was an idea that Secret Escapes wanted to do, and I think it was a really brilliant idea, to offer a prize if people could find bugs, if people could break the trust model, and no one did. I think everyone tried really hard, but no one got there. Which I think is really powerful in itself. But I think the key was just clear, honest communication throughout the project, and a clear goal of what was wanted out of it, and making sure that was regularly checked in on, as well as the technical side was making sure that everyone was constantly on the same page every week. And that's it's hard to go wrong then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and throw in a bit of fun with bug finding fees. It's definitely going to dial up the motivation. I know if somebody was offering me a prize to try and break something, I'd do my damnedest to try and break it. So, but as you say, it's really pleasing to hear that actually we couldn't break it. That's testament to the quality of the product that Salesforce have produced, and the reasoning engine and the trust layer. That actually it's doing what it's supposed to do. So that's brilliant. I just wanted to kind of finish up this interview piece, really, just to pick your brains and understand. So for any organisation out there that's excited by Agentforce and the possibilities that could bring to their business, to just get your thoughts in terms of what should they be doing in terms of planning and preparation. What should they think about before they embark on such a project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the same as any software project that you can think of, having clear use cases that relate to the business objectives that you've got at whatever business you're working at is number one priority. Don't look at a technology and try and implement it without a reason. I know there's a lot of temptation when something's really exciting, but you've got to think, what problems is this going to solve? What problems does this product have the capacity to solve? Does that fit the problems that I have in my business right now? And I think that's where to start with. So, for Agentforce, particularly if you've got a live chat, if you've got a menu-based bot, if you've only got live chat, you don't have any kind of deflection there at all at the moment as well. Start to have a think about what are those key, what are the top 5 different case types that you get come through, and start to have a look at those. Could those be answered with knowledge articles and with automations and actions? Could you marry that up? That's where you might want to start to have a look at, certainly for service. Do you have enough people to do all the outreach that you might need to do right now for sales? Maybe an SDR rep's the right way to go to start to have a look at. Imagine if every single one of your salespeople had its own BDR working 24/7 to go and prospect for them and try and bring them and schedule them new meetings. That's really, really powerful. So define the use cases you want to do. Make sure that those use cases are not too big either. Don't try and change the world in one go.
Yeah.
I'd say that for any software project, to be honest. Start to have a look at what you might want to work on. Come up with 3 to 5 use cases, and then start to flesh out what you might need from that. That's phase 1. Phase 2. Once you know what your use cases are, go and check your data, because 9 times out of 10, it's probably not going to be good enough, and you need to go and then identify what you need to do to make sure that you've got a really good set of data to work with. So that, as I alluded to earlier, that would be one area to look at. And then the third piece would be getting everyone on board. If you're going to go with it, make sure you explain the benefits to the team, to the board, to any of the key stakeholders you're going to be looking at. Make those use cases really compelling. Make sure you've got the ROI. Explain what work's got to go into it, and that's going to set you up to have a team that's going to be really engaged with it and have a really successful project. So I think those are probably the 3 key areas for me. And if people will ever need any help with that, we've got data readiness workshops, we've got AI readiness workshops, which help you define those use cases and look at your data. So there's options out there to get people to help you with that if you don't have those skills in-house as well.
Yeah, and I know obviously part of that's crucial to those workshops we do is all about helping people understand the ROI, because that's obviously key as well, isn't it? There's, as you say, just because something's shiny and new and exciting doesn't mean to say it would always make business sense. I think that definitely kind of helps drive the roadmap, doesn't it? In terms of what do you want to do and in what order? AI
is a tool, the same as Apex is a tool, and a Flow is a tool, or Service Cloud or Sales Cloud. You've got to use it for the right job. You're not going to try and hammer in a nail into a wooden board with a broom, right? It's not the right tool for the job. So you've got to make sure those use cases marry up, and then see where you can use that. The difference with Agentforce is it's a tool that it's a multi-tool. It can do a huge amount of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's interesting sort of when you look at a lot of the news stories, and I know there's a lot of people who there's fear over AI taking their jobs and so on. So as you said before, actually the change management and the people management piece, the communication, allaying those fears, explaining what their world will look like with Agentforce in it, is obviously a really important thing to, as you say, to get that buy-in, because that will, if they're really invested and bought into it, and they're not afraid and they're actually very excited, then that's just going to drive the project forward at an incredible pace, a bit like the Secret Escapes one, where that was an amazing project delivered in really quite a short time frame, especially for a completely new and certainly to much of the team involved, obviously other than the product team at Salesforce, quite unknown.
I think if you've got all those use cases, everything defined clearly, you've got your use cases, your data in check, you've got your team on board, you've explained the benefits. Most people don't want to work on repetitive tasks over and over and over again. If they want those automated, and that's the benefits that you're going to be bringing to people. Then that's going to set you up in good stead to really get the most out of an Agentforce implementation.
So just to wrap things up then, final, it's kind of there's a three-part question. So what would be, the top three things that you think companies should be doing around AI at this moment in time?
Okay. Top number one is starting to think about implementing an AI strategy into your overall technology strategy that you have at the moment, right? You shouldn't have an AI only strategy. It should be baked into your technology strategy that you have as a business, but it needs to be there and it needs to be thought about and it needs to be added in. Your employees are using AI whether you have it at the moment or not, right? I don't know anyone who's not using ChatGPT or Gemini, consumer grade products to do research, which is absolutely fine, or help with tasks, and there's a huge plethora of tools that are, individually suited for certain tasks, absolutely. But don't kid yourself that people aren't using it, because they are. And with all the new privacy laws and AI laws that are coming in and being talked about at the moment, as a business, you should be using a business grade account for whatever tools people are using. So get those use cases from your employees, because they're going to have them, because they'll be using it, even if you don't know about it. And make sure that those tools are being paid for, that you've got an agreement that the data that's input into them is not going into public training models, that it is retained, so that you don't want to be putting sensitive information in there anyway, but it gives you a bit more of a leeway. That's why the Einstein product is so good. It has that trust layer built in. There is no way for the data to get out into those large language models.
I guess the thing is, it probably, it's terrible, potentially sharing your kind of company secrets and intellectual property. You don't want that to get out. But even worse is if you were to share your customers' data. That's going to be it's risk management, isn't it? It's basically a big risk that people need to think about.
It is, absolutely. So having that within your strategy, within your risk management process, so that and you give people an avenue to use that and buy a business grade product, that is something that I think every modern business is going to have to do within the next year. Because people are going to use some form of AI, whether you want to or not, as a business. So that would be number one.
I think just on that, one thing that I've just personally noticed recently is on the TV at the moment, there's adverts from all the different mobile phone companies. I'm thinking Google, Apple, promoting those consumer grade products baked into their phones. And we know how kind of addicted mankind is to their phone now. So it's kind of, it seems like it as you said earlier, it's already happening, but if it hasn't already, when people start to get used to how they, you can see where it's almost like the adverts are like the AI agent is like their friend, and then they can talk to about anything, the football, their hobbies, etc. It just kind of, you can see it's not going to take long before they go, well, this thing's super helpful to me in my personal life. It's just like a natural extension that they're going to start to ask it about, can you solve my work problems as well for me?
And you want an AI that is built by the within the constraints of what you need as a business to make sure that happens. So having a strategy would be number one. Number two would be having a good, strong quality data foundation for your business. If you have multiple systems that don't talk to each other, you should start to think about making sure that you know, at the very least, maybe have some sort of data lake, or you're looking at a product such as Data Cloud to pull and unify all that data together for when you're looking at using AI. And also, you know, just doing your due diligence on all of that.
So a bit of like exploration work, you know.
Yeah.
You go to the market, look what's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then start small as well. You know, there's, you know, particularly for us in the Salesforce ecosystem, you know, there's all the Einstein features that you get. There's a huge amount of them that come out of the box, depending on what license type you're on. And you could be missing a trick by, you know, having a you know, opportunity scores, lead scores, predictors, you know, that you have access to, just not turned on. That can give you opportunities for more automation or better reporting that can help you make decisions around using those AI. You know, if you're not ready to take the plunge with, you know, the service agent, you know, why don't you start with service replies and email reply summaries and knowledge recommendations for your agents, you know, your human agents, your customer service reps that are working on things, because that's going to be really helpful to people, you know, anyway, helping work through, and then they're much quicker and easier to implement. So I'd say, you know, look at those quick wins as well. You know, AI doesn't have to revolutionize the world. It can do a small job, repetitive job, and help make that easier, and that's going to make a huge amount of difference if you start to add those quick wins up over time as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, all of this that we're talking about now, we've got our AI readiness workshops that we talk through all of that through in detail and help you work out what you could do with that. Same with the data readiness workshops that we run, and our health checks as well.
Yeah.
Looking at all those different features and functionalities that could help. And I would say the other thing, if you are interested in learning more about the Agentforce implementation and what we did for Secret Escapes, we've got a really good in-depth case study with the Secret Escapes team actually talking.
So we've got a video.
We've got a video, that was done with me and the team at Secret Escapes that we all worked on, and I'd recommend going and having a look at that. That should be linked in the description on this video as well.
Brilliant. And so would you, you know, there's always, you know, there's various bits of technology over time where, you know, we've said, hey, you know, this is a great leveler, and, you know, there'll be small companies that will be able to compete with larger ones and potentially wipe them out. So, you know, do you think that this is that kind of, that type of technology? Is it a game changer?
I would say so. Yeah, I think this has the potential, certainly for smaller businesses. You are more agile naturally than a larger business, so now's the time to get on top and you know and get that competitive advantage using AI properly, to help your business before all the big large corporates really bake it into everything they do. And at that point, it's then going to be an expectation of service. You know,
that's super personalised.
That is, that you have a super personalised relationship with the business, and that's going on. And if you don't then adopt that, you know, you'll be left behind. So I think there's certainly a window of opportunity for, you know, smaller businesses to really grow and make the most out of this, before everyone starts using it, and it will then become an expectation of service.
Yeah. I mean, we're certainly seeing. I think, you know, no one would disagree that, you know, expectations for customers and consumers are higher than they've ever been before. You know, they expect a really personalized service. They want to be able to communicate on any channel that is of their choosing, and actually, but they also want it to be joined up. So if they start a conversation with us on this channel and then they kind of drop out and then they pick it up here, they expect us to know about that. And you know, these are the kind of technologies that are going to help us deliver that fantastic you know, experience that they're looking for. And I think, as you say, you know, there is a window of opportunity at the moment. Obviously, you know, the whole technology is moving at such a pace. You know, with new you know, reasoning engines, new LLMs coming out all the time. You know, the new approaches, new products. So it's pretty quick. But I think I'd agree with you that, you know, any size business, you've got to bear in mind that your competitors will be looking at this. They will be wanting to get the advantage. So you don't want to get left behind or trying to play catch up.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Lots of fantastic insights there. You know, looking forward to having another chat with you in the future and finding out more about some of the other exciting projects that we're doing. Love to have a chat with you about the SDR projects that we're doing at the moment. I think that's going to be super interesting. I know you guys are really enjoying that and excited about it. So we will look forward to finding out more in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's been really nice to speak.
Great, pleasure. Thank you very much.